We'll start with TJ Watt and his latest odds to win Defensive Player of the Year. So currently on DraftKings, he is tied for first, co-front runners for the 2025 Defensive Player of the Year award with Dallas Cowboys linebacker Micah Parsons. And while everybody's like, oh, Micah Parsons is this and he's not that good and so on and so forth, there are two sides to the situation here. There is the good side for TJ Watt and there is the bad side for TJ Watt. What do we start with? We start with good or we start with bad?
Always start with good and then we'll get through the bad afterwards.
All right. So the good is this. The good is that TJ Watt had to overcome Myles Garrett and at some point had to give the award to Myles Garrett. We all know this. We're all well aware that Myles Garrett winning the award last year was the NFL needed to finally give Myles Garrett a Defensive Player of the Year award. You couldn't lock him in as a generational talent. This guy's a freak of nature, hyping him up as much as the NFL hyped up Myles Garrett and then not give him a Defensive Player of the Year award. He was going to win it whether he sat on the bench all season or not. That's just what was going to happen. It was written in the stars. It was the easiest bet you could have made before the season. Myles Garrett was going to win it. The good news for TJ Watt is TJ Watt is TJ Watt. He's not going to go down. He's not going to go up. Myles Garrett has, I think, the fourth best odds to win the award this season, and that's because the NFL expects that he's just going to be Myles Garrett again, and he can't do that twice. You can't give him two back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year awards if he does not earn back-to-back Defensive Player of the Year awards. TJ is going to be TJ. He's going to be a guy who probably leads the league in sacks. He's going to be a guy who forces fumbles and interceptions and just has a ridiculous stat line. And yes, last year you needed an excuse to ignore it, so they brought up the pressure rate or the pressure win rate or whatever the made-up stat was that the data guys were like, we're going to use this one to give Myles Garrett the award. The good thing is this. If you run through the stats, if you go TJ Watt versus Micah Parsons, let me just break it down for you. In 2023, Parsons finished with 14 sacks, 64 tackles, 18 tackles for loss, 33 quarterback hits, a forced fumble, a fumble recovery, and 2 pass deflections. Yep, great guy. The TJ Watt, 19 sacks, 68 tackles, 19 tackles for loss, 36 quarterback hits, 8 pass deflections, 4 forced fumbles, 3 fumble recoveries, an interception, and a game-winning touchdown against the Cleveland Browns. So clearly he wins the stat line. Micah Parsons is not Myles Garrett, and everybody wants to say he's the next guy, he's the next big legend. There are two sides to this that work in TJ Watt's favor. When it comes to just the publicity side, and the NFL is obviously a publicity stunt a lot of the times. Micah Parsons is not, he's not a quiet dude, so he talks a lot. Myles Garrett doesn't really talk that much. He does talk some, but Micah Parsons talks a lot. So he's not going to be the guy that you have to give the award to, because there will be a lot of people who do not like that he talks so much and goes out there and rambles and so on and so forth. 2 is he is not a generational talent like Myles Garrett is supposed to be. And because of that, because he was, I believe, the 11th pick in the draft or something crazy like that, he's not the guy that Myles Garrett is, and he's not looked at in the NFL like Myles Garrett is. So as much as he is the next guy that's supposed to win, you're not just going to hand him an award. He's got to earn the award, which always works in TJ Watt's favor. The bad part of that is that if the Dallas Cowboys are good and real good, there is never a team that has more attention on them than the Dallas Cowboys. And because of that, Micah Parsons always gets an upper hand, because the Steelers, they could be fantastic. And hopefully Russell Wilson kind of raises that bar of TV coverage and people actually paying attention instead of just Stephen A. Smith and so on and so forth rambling about nothing because they clearly didn't watch the game on Sunday. And they raise the bar and TJ gets a little bit more TV coverage, a little bit more spotlight. And the Steelers aren't a team that everybody is just ignoring because they're the Pittsburgh Steelers and they're, boring. You love the Pittsburgh Steelers if you're a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, but if you're national media, you don't got much to talk about and you're not really paying attention. That's the difference is if the Steelers do not get the national coverage that the Dallas Cowboys get, obviously eyes will be on Micah Parsons, and everybody and their mother is going to push the narrative of, is this Micah Parsons' year to be the best defender in the NFL? So TJ's got to overcome that. I don't think it's nearly the challenge that Myles Garrett is, but I do still think it's a challenge for TJ Watt. Your thoughts on Micah being the guy this year alongside TJ?
I mean, I understand it. Micah's been knocking on the door the last couple of seasons, maybe not to the level of some of these elite guys like
Yeah.
Myles Garrett and TJ Watt, but he's still one of the elite defenders in the National Football League. And there's going to be a lot of people that want to see him succeed, especially because a lot of people want to see Dallas succeed because it's good for the league, it's good for revenue, it's good for all of that. But the one thing that I will say in TJ Watt's favor is you mentioned, the national media attention. This season is lining up for him to get the most national media attention that he potentially could ever have in Pittsburgh. You're on Hard Knocks. You're playing on Christmas Day against the back-to-back defending champions, and the back half of your schedule is going to be a lot of games that have a lot of eyes on them. If he comes out and is consistent in the first half but goes off in the second half, that is going to 100% play into his favor.
Yeah, I agree. I don't disagree there. I think this is an opportunity. I think the NFL wants to get eyes on TJ Watt. You'll get the Hard Knocks. That's the thing, is TJ's not gonna earn any love in Hard Knocks. You know what I mean? He's a very quiet guy. He's not gonna talk much. He's not gonna say anything crazy. It's all gonna be mic'd up situations or something. Like, the cameras are gonna have to catch him saying something or doing something crazy, for everybody to fall in love with him, who isn't just a Steelers fan who's like, man, dude, I love how TJ Watt focuses on nothing but football and is just a terrifying human being, because that's exactly who he is. And all respect to that, because, man, TJ Watt, if you say hi to TJ Watt in the locker room, you're like a little bit intimidated just like walking by him. You know what I mean? That's who TJ is. I agree with you. I think this is a great opportunity for him. Does he have to lead the league in sacks? Because I guess that doesn't even count anymore. What's he have to do to in your eyes, guarantee a defensive player of the year?
I think the one thing you mentioned at the top of this was the Myles Garrett effect last year. I think if he leads the league in sacks again and still does everything else that TJ Watt typically does, which is flat out win games for the Steelers, like directly. Yes. You can always say, well, I mean, this player played a big role. No, he directly wins games for the Steelers. If he's able to do that this year, I think he'll be able to get it, because like I mentioned, and like you mentioned, the bar is a little bit lower this year because there's not as much of a narrative to give one guy the overwhelming majority of votes simply because he deserves to have one on his resume.
Yeah, I agree. You want to know a name on this list who sits third currently, who I think should be there with TJ Watt, is Max Crosby. And this is, we're talking a lot of Raiders here. I'll be very short with this, but it should be Max Crosby and TJ Watt for front runners for defensive player of the year, because nobody has an impact like Max Crosby outside of TJ Watt. And that's just like, it's a fact. Go watch his tape. It's unreal. Sometimes I get bored and just watch Max Crosby highlights because I'm like, dang, this guy's impressive. And he doesn't get it. He's a bigger sleeper than TJ Watt just because he's a boring name, talks a lot of smack, but he plays for the Raiders and nobody cares. So big Max Crosby guy, bigger TJ Watt guy. So
I like Aiden Hutchinson this year to be a guy that jumps up there as well.
That could be a name. Which Aiden Hutchinson could be a scarier name to watch than Max Crosby and Micah Parsons, because if the Lions
everybody loves
good,
Detroit.
Everybody loves Detroit. That could be a tough one.